7 o'clock. Do you know where your puppeteers are? They're all here. This is very exciting. Greetings. Well, one machine says 7, one says 6:59. So welcome everybody in the house here at the Ballard Institute and online for the Careers in Puppet Production Puppet Forum with Rob Saunders and Dana Samborski. Of CJS Workshop, about which we will learn a lot this evening. My name is John Bell. I'm the director of the Ballard Institute, and I'm here with our director of our manager of operations and collections, Emily Wicks, somewhere in the back. Got the maple cookies in the back. Those are her. And Anthony Salido, our talented education and exhibitions coordinator, manning the iPad for the Facebook Live. Saul Ramirez, our undergraduate Waring Fellow, in the front row. And out front, Sarah Musave, our museum assistant. The exits are over there, to my right, your left. And the restrooms are over there, and also an exit. But the better exit is out the way you came in, And we have an attendance sheet we would really appreciate you signing so that we can prove that people actually came to this event. Emily is holding that. We wanted to mention that this Friday, in conjunction with our current exhibit, Tradition and Revolution in Indian Shadow Puppetry, curated by Rahul Kunathara, who's sitting there in the back, we will present a celebration of Indian performing arts to showcase the talents of local and Yukon Indian artists. Rahul and Anthony will host this starting this Friday at 6:30. And the event will feature puppetry, music, and dance by Yukon and local Indian artists, including Kuchipudi, dancer Laya Vinyasa, Gopi Krishnan and his ensemble of Melam drummers, Yukon Sanskriti, a student cultural organization, and henna. After the show, you can get hennaed, and there'll be refreshments from Kathmandu restaurant, etc. Admission is free, limited seating, reservations needed, and you can get to those at our bimpticketleap.com site. This forum is part of a series of events focused on careers in puppetry, which really I feel like Emily Wicks has really urged us to do, which is really brilliant. We're excited to be joined by Rob and Dana of CJS Workshop, which for some reason I was spelling CSJ, which is a completely different workshop. Doesn't even exist yet, to talk about career opportunities in puppet design and production and their experience moving into the growing field of puppets and costumes for the themed entertainment and commercial advertising industries. Rob started making puppets in his early teens, a 1996 graduate of Puppet Arts program at the University of Connecticut before most of these people were born. Rob's career has wandered into a series of amazing opportunities. He has been part of some of the most iconic puppet and creature costume projects in film, television, and themed entertainment. After 15 years of being a freelance puppeteer in LA, seems very glamorous, but apparently it wasn't always glamorous. Rob moved to Nashville, where he established himself as the vice president of Animax Designs, a premier puppet and animatronics studio catering to theme parks. After 4 exciting years at Animax, Rob jumped back into television as the head of builds at Stupid Buddy Studios in LA to produce costumes for Fox's The Masked Singer. And I always admired those masks, and it's interesting to think that you were involved with that, for an exhilarating 5 seasons. The pandemic allowed Rob and his wife Emily to return home to New England with their 3 boys, Christopher, Samuel, and Jacob. Chris CSJ, and it was this returning home that allowed Rob the opportunity to finally start his own shop with a renewed focus on puppets and costumes for theme parks, touring shows, and commercial advertising. Rob is excited to keep the CSJ workshop growing, and he spends his days working on amazing projects with a wonderful crew of talented artists who we will learn about. Dana Samborski, who performed his MFA project in this theater. Always, you described yourself when we were eating as sort of less than serious. I always thought you were very serious. And as a grad student, maybe you were thinking about it, then it got serious.
Yes.
And a very amazing student when you were a student. And now you're director of production at CSJ Workshop with more than 20 years of fabrication experience. He has been part of all aspects of puppet and costume production, and his out-of-the-box approach to everything from character costumes to large-scale animatronics is done with an eye for ease of use, maintenance, and performer safety and comfort. As director of production as production manager at the Escape game, he ran all aspects of production from design through quality control and install. As an assembly technician and later as assembly manager at Animax Designs, Dana helped drive design, production, installation, and maintenance. He has his BFA and when you were goofy, and your MFA when you became serious from the University of Connecticut Puppet Arts Program. I'm being facetious here. He was selected as an emerging artist at the Eugene O'Neill Puppetry Conference in 2014 and performed at Dragon Con in 2017. So welcome, Rob and Dana. Thank you for being here. So I think we're hoping that since there's so many puppeteers in the house that this will involve a good bit of back and forth with your questions and comments and Rob and Dana's questions and comments. I forgot to mention the ubiquitous presence of our colleague Bart Rocco-Burton here, director of the Yukon Puppet Arts Program, documenting this event. Many things could be said about the amazing Bart Rocco-Burton. Rob and Dana. If I started, I would just keep going. So you have a presentation. I don't know if when you want to present that. I sort of wanted to ask, what is CJS Workshop, and what does it do, and how do you do it, as the beginning of this conversation?
That's a big question. In 2021, I decided to finally open my own shop, and I really wanted to focus on two particular markets, which was theme park and commercials, just because it was like a mix of long-term projects with kind of fun quick projects. And while the building stuff wouldn't give me opportunities to puppeteer, the commercial stuff would, and I'm a SAG-AFTRA puppeteer, and I want to continue to play with dolls. So for me, it was a big thing of let's blend those two in starting my own shop. And so puppets and costumes was sort of the get back to focus for me. With Animax Designs, we were more focused on animatronics, which is the high-end robotics side of the theme park world. Fascinating, amazingly talented people, but after 4 years, I realized that I'm a puppet and costume guy, and I needed to get back to that. And so I took a break, and then started working on Masked Singer, which was the aha moment of costumes. Yeah, you're an idiot. Go back to work. So started. My wife and I settled in Massachusetts after a long time of being away from Massachusetts. And I started my own shop. And so with a specific focus on just puppets and costumes, keep it basic, simple. And I was surprised at how quickly it took off. We were expecting it to take longer than it has to get to where we are now. So we focus on theme park style costumes, which are character costumes, which could be construed as like mascot-y, but they're much higher end than like your normal mascot. It's these things have to last hundreds of shows a week. They have to be maintainable, wearable, washable, safe, easy to get a suit performer out of if they're in distress. So the ergonomics and safety requirements that go into the construction and design of all of our costumes is pretty substantial. But we've been really lucky in that the team that we've been assembling are some of the best fabricators you'll ever meet. And everybody's like kind of chill, and they just want to like make cool stuff. And so like that was sort of the other thing that I'm like, if I'm going to have my own shop, like what do I want? I'm like, I just want everybody to be cool. Like just relax, just make stuff, and just that's it. And instead of, obviously, you have your pressures of day to day. This is a very long, winding answer for you.
This is puppets and costumes.
Puppets and costumes. So that's our primary focus is puppets and costumes. Right now, almost exclusively for theme park, but we have a commercial sales rep now who is aggressively hunting for film and TV and commercial opportunities for us. And then the other side of that, from the manufacturing side, which is that encapsulates all that, is something which we call ship and store, which is a warehousing and costume inventory for a lot of like touring shows and cruise lines, all of which are expanding their repertoires for family entertainment for their ships and arena shows. So
that's a start.
It was a winding conversation, but you get it.
Dana, how did you get to CJS? Excuse me. Workshops. How did you get there, and what do you do?
I am the director of operations at CJS.
Operations?
No, sorry, director of production.
You're not even that
Oh my gosh. No, I'm the director of production. The way Rob describes it is he gets the work and I make sure it gets out the door.
Yep.
I oversee scheduling, procurement, design, day-to-day management, scheduling, personnel, all that stuff.
When did you start with?
January.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think there was 7 people in January,
Yes.
and now we're over 30.
Okay. And hiring, right?
And hiring, yes.
Yeah. So, should we go to the presentation, or should
Yeah.
we? Okay.
Everyone loves a slideshow.
Oh, okay. Oh, do that? Okay. Oh,
Either one.
okay. Okay. Do you want to do the honors?
Sure. So here's our capabilities deck. There's privacy and confidentiality, about us. Hey, it's me. Let's get to the fun stuff. Let's show you some puppets. Again, I did 5 seasons on Masked Singer, which was an awesome experience. That television fabrication, for anybody that has not been a part of it, you have a very, very short window of time to get stuff built. Our seasons were very truncated. They typically shot like 10 episodes in like 2 weeks, so they just knocked everything out in a very short period of time. So we would do like 3 seasons inside of a year. Typically from start to finish on any given costume, I was handed a drawing, and it had to be 4 weeks later it was delivered. That was with 2 fittings, adjustments, everything. So it was crazy. When you ramp up very, very quickly, you have to get a team together very, very quickly. In Los Angeles, everybody's freelance, so it's like, okay, who's available? How can we assemble a team to get this done? Hopefully, by that point, we were starting a season when we were ending a season to keep the same team running. So it was tricky, but super fun because you get to work with like unbelievable talent, and you don't have time to think. It's just like we have to make a thing, and we have no time to do it. So it was very fun to do that. We have the luxury at CJS with several projects. I'm going to say CSJ at some point now. I'm going to say
that's not a separate tally.
A lot of our projects are, the theme park industry is a little bit different. We have typically, on a refurb or something like that, where we're kind of refreshing a costume like 8 to 10 weeks, and on a new costume where we have a design effort, it's usually several months to I think we've got 2 projects that are like about 24 months, which is great. That's a long time to really tinker and refine. But that also means that we're building not only the design element of it, we're building multiple costumes, because they'll do their order for how many they want on top of the design effort. So like one character we have is the design effort and then 12. So they're like, great, just make them. So once we hit the approval point, once they're like, yes, we like this is what we want you to build, then it's off the races on the multiples.
And with my experience from the animatronic industry, it's 6 to 8 months of looking at something on a screen, all agreeing it's going to work, and then it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then you spend another 6 to 8 months making it work.
Yep, redesigning it and making it practical.
Yep.
And making, I'm sorry, with the costumes, you were saying like multiples. That's something I didn't understand, that you make multiples of the costumes.
So typically in the theme park world, you have to have, they typically do them in bunches of 4. So you have three primaries and then a spare that can be turned in. Well, if one is damaged, they can send that back to the shop, and then they just keep that rotation going. Because there's a cleaning time for costumes that once they're typically theme parks are in the hottest, muggiest places in the world. I don't know why they keep doing that to people, but that's what they do. And then they put people into fur suits and they make them run around. So the costumes can get pretty gross pretty fast. So we've developed systems of liners and whatnot that we can remove to mitigate the amount of sweat that is absorbed into the primary suit. And just keep it sort of in the under layers, but even then with body pods and whatnot, which create the shape and structure of a character, they get gross. And so the cleaning time can be either a couple of days or a couple of weeks, depending on like how gross they are.
Pretty gross.
Yeah, but yeah. So we typically have to build multiple sets, and then if they want that character for multiple parks, then it's a whole different thing.
And I think I didn't quite realize until you were talking about it earlier that it's like, as this slide says, it's also puppet performance. Like there's the training that goes along with it. I thought you were focused mostly on the building, but there's this whole other part of you that's really getting into puppet performance.
I mean, most of our team are trained puppeteers. They're performing puppeteers, and we're always on the lookout for opportunities where we get to play, and puppeteer. And the big thing for us on everything from fabrication straight through to performance is training. We are always looking at like our junior builders who we can say, okay, you have these skill sets, but we need to build you up here and here and here, and we'll pair them with an old timer like ourselves.
Well, there's like 5 or 6 of us in the shop or more that came through the program as well. Yeah. So we've got a lot of people that training is important, and that you don't know it all. No one can know it all. So, like, if somebody's going to come in with a new skill set, we want to like kind of pass that along to everybody, because it helps you grow as an artist. It lets you like expand your skill set. Like, you may be really good at like molding and casting. We may not always have a job that's for molding and casting. So, if you're working with us, it's a full-time job. I need to put you to work on something. So we have general rules at our shop of like, everybody has to know how to sew. You gotta know. Like, it's puppets and costumes. You gotta know how to sew. So if you're wondering I wonder what I need to focus on, it's like sewing. So learn as much as you can about the multitude of machines. Learn how to run a straight stitch, a zigzag, a serger. Industrial machines, home machines. Your hand stitching, a lot of what we do is sewing. So with us being a primarily puppet and costume shop as opposed to an animatronic shop,
where, like I said, we'll look at a computer for 6 months. We are generalist fabrication focused, so when we get a new character, instead of designing it primarily in a computer, we develop the IP, the intellectual property, and the overall sculpt of the character in a computer digitally. It's easier to modify and adjust for creative approvals. But we also develop and bench build the costume or puppet for functionality, ease of use, comfort, performer safety, especially ergonomics. Side note: we are actually redesigning a costume that's already out in the parks because the performers keep hurting themselves and they fall over and then they can't get up. And they're like, "That's a big issue."
It was a big design flaw from the first iteration. So we'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
And we didn't build the first one. It was
no.
They were like, "Can you look at this?" I'm like, "Yes."
But with that, we hire what we call generalists or jack of all trades, where we like to. Everyone can specialize in things, but we like to make sure that everybody's at least versed in all the disciplines we use. In part because that makes them more adaptable depending on what kind of work we have. Mm-hmm. But also, so much of what we do, every single discipline and technique and material that goes into it interacts with every other part of the costume or the puppet. Yeah. So a mechanism that has a 3D printed or carbon fiber shell can also have a silicone skin and fur and fabric, and all of those materials behave differently. So if you're able to work with all those materials and know how they interact, you're able to see a project through from the beginning to the end and know how all those things work. So you end up with a costume or a puppet that works better.
Yeah. One of the things that is a big deal for me is, like, I want all my team to feel like they are connected to the product that they're making. I've worked for shops where, like, you just focus on your one thing. That's the one thing you do, whether it's foam fabrication or you're sewing buttons on. Like I've been on a project where, like, it was just snaps for weeks, but then it goes away and you don't get to see it finished. You hear it's like, oh, that job went out, and I was like, oh, I didn't see it. With my team, like, it's really important for me that everybody have a very good general. Like, I would much rather you have a wide, a good array of, like, several skills versus just one thing, because I can then utilize you in, like, so many more areas. And so that for us is a big thing with the training is like look, all right, like, I don't expect you to know everything, but we're going to know, once you start with us. We're going to assess your skill levels, and then we'll build a plan with you to say, okay, we're going to get you to this level, and then we're going to get you to this, and grow you gradually. And my thing there is, like, doesn't that makes everybody a better artist? It's like, you don't have to stay with us forever, but if you come in to work with us and you leave with more skills than you came in with, you're going to go out and be able to do more with your own art than you did before, and that's the goal. Is we want to give you that training, for that level as well.
And a lot of what we do, we don't necessarily just ship it, but we install it as well.
Yep.
And so when you have that diverse skill set, you can get dropped off somewhere and make it work.
You got to be able to work on the fly.
I had to install a 20-foot tall robotic dragon character in Singapore. And we had to touch up the paint.
With COVID.
With COVID, yeah. But we didn't have, we had access to hardware stores, but we were working night shifts. So anytime we needed a new tool or material, we had to describe it to the local team, who would then go out during the day and buy it. So we had to make do with whatever we brought or what we could get locally from the Singapore equivalent of an Ace Hardware.
Wow.
For example, we need to get barge glue, and they're like, "What's barge glue?" And we described it to them, and they got something called tiger glue. And I was just, open it up and do the thing you don't do, and I just huffed a big whiff of it, and I was like, "No, that's the right stuff."
Oh, nice.
And they're like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "No, I'm totally sure. This is the glue we need."
It passes the smell test.
Yeah.
Anyway, so as far as puppeteer training, what this slide represents, one of the things that we want to implement more of. So our team works typically Mondays through Thursdays. We do a 4-10 schedule. So every Friday you're off. What we are hoping to do in the next year or so is start doing performance training programs for TV puppetry, and because again, like we have some very well trained TV puppeteers, and then we have people that are just like, I'd love to learn, but I don't know how. The nice thing is that is a skill that can be grown, and so getting you used to working on monitor, getting you used to working on a set environment, not being afraid of camera and lighting, and the logistics of how to shoot. That's I'm sliding down here. Very important to us as well. So that's part of what we're going to be implementing within our company. I know other companies do similar things, which is great. Everybody needs that. They need that kind of that constant refresh and training. So.
Is there more of a demand for that now? Or are you meeting a growing demand? Or are you providing a service that hasn't been offered before? It interests me. For puppet performance, yeah.
Honestly, right now, the trends that I'm seeing are much more on the themed entertainment side.
Okay.
We've had good talks with production companies and whatnot, saying, "Hey, we make puppets," and they're like, "Nah, we're done." There was a period of years where the puppet industry was very, very heavy in all children's television, and like right now, there's like a couple of really good shows on television. There's like Slumberkins and Don Quixote, and I think the newest version of Fraggle Rock's pretty good. I haven't seen it, but there are much fewer opportunities, I think, for TV puppetry right now. I think where TV puppetry is still very popular is commercials. Mm-hmm. And I think that's always kind of a thing, because it's just there. You can create, like, I need to make a bag of chips, sing a dance, and that's a puppet. Mm-hmm. But it's not the kind of character work that you would see on like Sesame Street or whatnot. I think that is cooling off significantly right now. So, but where you are seeing more puppetry is and costume performance is touring shows and theme park work and event, especially immersive event stuff. We've been seeing a huge boost in sort of environmental, experiential worlds that get created through companies like Meow Wolf and other stuff. So you're starting to see the show entertainment side. I think a lot of those started off as like general media. Like Meow Wolf is very big on like weird geometric shapes and then screens and visual imagery. Now you're starting to see creative entertainment teams come in and add characters and performers and all those things. So I'm interested to see where it goes. There's definitely some good opportunity there.
Should we move through? I want to see the concept and budgeting. I'm liking all the.
So our capabilities deck. This is probably not the best deck for this particular. But they were like, we need something. So we do. Our company does everything start to finish. So we can provide you with designs, drawings, full complete budgets from start to finish, from like what it takes to do prototypes and to your standard production unit cost.
What's the process of budgeting like? You were talking a little about that earlier, and it's sort of fascinating to me, like because you were thinking, it's going to take this amount of time to do this and that, and
that's exactly what it is.
It's exactly what it is. Yeah, that's it.
How do you know?
So this is something that you're all going to run into as a professional puppeteer and performer and anything is creating a budget. And so one of the things that we've gotten good at is like sort of deciding what our shop rate is, what it costs, to manage our overhead, manage the overall day-to-day operations of the company. And then sort of break that down into a price based on the number of hours that we think a specific project will take. So if we know that a project takes 10 hours, it costs this much, and that's just kind of how we do it.
So I feel like good budgeting is, I don't know if it's an art form, but it's there. I'm impressed with people who can make a good budget.
It's So if this is okay, you want to get in the weeds on this. The trick with the budget is whether or not you can actually hit the margins that you want to hit, which is your profit line. And so, are you putting enough of a percentage in to cover not only your costs, but actually to make a little money at the end of the day? And then if you go over what you estimated, then all of a sudden you're losing money. Mm-hmm. So it's always about finding that balance of, what you estimate that time, and then holding true to that estimate. And sometimes
one of the things that was kind of the founding principles of the company was be pleasant and easy to work with.
Yes. Deliver
stuff that's good on time and on budget, and people will come back and work with you again.
It's pretty simple, but at the same time impressively complex. So Dana and I's relationship, as far as sales go, I'm the sort of chief salesperson for the company. So I'm used to sitting up here and talking about CSJ, and where I come in, I build that budget and say, okay, Dana, this is what you have to work with. We've estimated all the time, we've estimated everything into it. Here's what you have to spend on materials, and here's what you have to spend on labor. Go. And so his job is to stay in those lanes and to make sure that the entire production team is hitting all of their markers for staying within that budget, because it's the only way that we can sustain the shop for the next project. And if you're always over budget, then it's hard to run a company. So you need people that can budget time, because time is money. And so we have a nice relationship in that we can sit there and I can go, what do you think? And he's like, no, we need way more time than that.
Or the opposite is you walk into my office and sigh, and I'm like, what? And you're like, well, we got more work.
Yeah.
Again.
We've been very, very lucky. It's been a tremendous. We're entering in December. We turn 3.
Mm-hmm.
We enter into our third year.
Entering the third year.
We enter our third year. So we turn 2. And we are, we're already 35 people, which is a substantial
and booked through for the next 2 years.
And booked for 2 years. So.
Earlier, did you say, Dana, that a handful of people, 6 or 7 people, are from the program, the Puppet Arts program? Are there,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a good handful of us in the shop that
great.
came through the program.
Great.
Yeah.
If you don't, I was thinking if you'd rather not go through all of these.
So it's just design, fabrication,
business.
We're happy to talk.
Okay, great.
Fabrication, obviously, as Dana pointed out, we are a fabrication first company. I think a lot of people get lost in the design elements. Oh, look how fancy we can make this. Our thing is no, it has to work. It has to be easy to get into and get out of. It has to be comfortable for the suit performer or the puppeteer. It can be the most perfect looking character, but if you can't move it, then what's the point of it? The reason we all got into this industry is to make things move and to make things emote and be characters.
We had a nice success recently where we made a rod puppet with some pneumatics, facial animations that needed a 10-week run.
Yeah.
Running, several hours a day, 7 days a week for this limited run, but it was directly interacting with guests, a lot of whom would have been fairly drunk and rowdy.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that it was built like a tank to last that run. And some of the really nice surprise wins we got with that was when we went down, we had the final sign-off review with the clients and the IP holders, and they were like, no notes, and we're like, but there's always notes. No notes, it's fine. Good. Cool. And then throughout the run, I would be texting the tech that I trained to do the puppet maintenance, and I'd be like, what's going on? What troubles do we have? And she's like, nothing, it's fine. It's just working. And I was like...
Which is rare.
Yeah, it's very rare. But,
so
that's just kind of our process of make it work, make it look good, deliver what they need.
Yeah, the reliability of a character is really what's going to sell your next job. If you're making something that meets all expectations and doesn't break inside of 6 weeks, you're doing a pretty good job, you know. And so we focus on those elements rather than like how fancy we can make it. Does it actually function? Does it do the things that we need it to do in the lifespan that we need it to do it?
And for themed stuff, themed puppets and costumes, if they can take it apart, look at something inside it, and put it back together in under 10 minutes,
that's a good thing.
They will always give you more work.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's overcomplicated and you can't, because maintenance is a huge part of what we do. You know, a good portion of our day-to-day is like costumes that are older and coming back to us for a complete refresh, whether that's new fur or new fleece skins or all new mechanical understructure.
And techs do all their maintenance at night when the parks are closed. So I was working on a job that had, I think, 50 separate elements that would have to get inspected each night. So we're prioritizing inspection time and the ease of which you could swap parts out.
Yeah.
So because 1 or 2 techs had to hit all of these things in an 8-hour shift.
So simple is better. Less is more.
What is Oh, sorry. I
Please.
interrupted you. What is figure finish?
Figure finish is... So this is where we slip into some of the animatronic world. Basically, it is the skin, the final wrap on a character. So we just finished a job for some good friends of ours, an animation company down in Georgia, that are presenting a character at the IAPA trade show, which is coming up. Which IAPA is the largest like themed entertainment trade show. It happens every November in Orlando. Highly recommend it if you're looking to get into the theme park trade. That's where everybody is.
You can think of it as the Arnold Schwarzenegger on the Terminator.
It's huge.
There's a robot, and then there's a thing on top of it that makes it look like a person.
Yeah, it's the skin on the robot.
Yeah.
So figure finish, but that can be for anything. So it can be, you know, if we're doing anything for like just a simple costume to a skin to, you know, fur work, flocking, anything. So, but that's what figure finish is.
Then the customer service part of it, as I've talked with you both, and with Bart, you know, that's an interesting thing for me, being pretty ignorant. That this is an ongoing relationship that you have with your customers. That there's, you were talking about this a little bit already, but there's this. That's interesting to me. It's not just you make it and it's out the door and you don't worry about it. There's this continuing thing going on.
One of the biggest things for me was, you know, we both worked at studios that do sort of have that mentality of like, we've made it, it's gone, it's out of mind. And service for me is a big deal. Service to our friends, our family, service to each other as coworkers, and then service to our clients. For me, our company's reputation is now built on that service. It's built on the reputation of how can we help? What do you need from us? What can we do to make whatever's going on better for you? And that isn't a one-time conversation. That's a weekly conversation. It's a daily check-in. That's I have my check-ins with all of our clients. That it's like, hey, how are things going? Anything new coming in? Anything we should know about? Are you having any problems with any of our stuff? We do constant check-ins on the projects that we, the Halloween project that he was mentioning. That was a daily check-in. We have a tech on site at the park that was telling us daily what's going on with it, and we were taking notes on like, okay, well, this might be this, so we may have to come down and tweak it. And we didn't need to, but because it worked. But that level of service to the clients was a big deal for them. They were like, nobody ever calls us every day to like check in. Like, who are you? So, but that was the intent. That was the intent for us, was like, we want them to feel like they're not alone in this. This is a big effort. They're spending a lot of money on a lot of costumes, a lot of characters, a lot of puppets. And the biggest thing for us is, we're going to get that repeat customer if they just know that working with us is just easy, and that they can trust that when we say we're going to do something, we do it. Our stuff's on time. We handle changes without blame or or big blow ups of drama. We're like, oh, okay, a mistake happened. We will fix it. Done. That's the end of the conversation. And we fix it. We show it to them, and once they approve it, then we consider that to be resolved. But the biggest thing for us is service, and we're in this life together. We have to serve each other in some capacity as friends and coworkers. So it's a big deal to be able to say to people, we're here to take care of you. What do you need? So that's sort of our company, part of our company laws.
Important.
So yeah.
I want to ask you about UConn, but let's go through.
This is just various puppet stuff. So we make custom eyes, do custom fur work. Obviously, hand puppets, Muppet style puppets, like all the the classic TV puppets, and then obviously creatures and whatnot. And yeah, so some of our core capabilities, everything from concept development, mechanical design, electrical design. If you want us to storyboard stuff, we have a couple of people that can do storyboarding and film it. And cut some reels together.
How much do people go into all these different areas? You mentioned earlier, like you might need people who are sewing as well as fabricating. Like, do people routinely cover a bunch of different areas?
Everybody that we work with typically has such a wide variety of skills. Like, I'm always surprised when somebody's like, "Oh yeah, I just shot my own film." And I'm like, "What? Show me!" Like, I had no idea. And so once we know that they can do that, we look for chances to say, "Hey, we want to shoot like a demo reel for this little thing that we're doing. Do you want to shoot that for us?" And so it gives them an opportunity to do what they like to do, and we can capitalize on that. And yeah, so it's a mix. It's always a mix, but everybody, we're all scrappy. We all come up with this stuff. So concept to completion, development, drawings, icons, blah blah blah.
It's an interesting dance talking about what we do when all of our clients say we can't talk about what we do.
Yeah. That's part of it for us. Is the theme parks are very key on privacy. They're we'll typically get a contract which is like this thick of paperwork, and then like the NDA which is like this thick of paperwork. So we take it very seriously with our theme park clients. They say don't show anything. We don't show anything. They say don't talk about who you are working with, and so we just say that we're working with theme parks. Commercial is different. Commercial is once something airs, once it's on TV, we can show that and put reels together. But we're so new, we don't have much of that yet. So a lot of what you're seeing from us is things that like we've worked on in the past of past experiences. So this is some of my Masked Singer costumes that I was part of. The Hydra, which is over here, was Penn and Teller. I forget who everybody else was, but anyway, yeah, Penn and Teller. They were the most fun for me. I was like, oh my god. But they were super fun to work with. So, and then some clients that we are allowed to say that we've done work with, and some features that I was part of, and So more about that. So anyway, the reel is the reel, but happy to sit and talk about like projects if you ever want to know more about a single project or not.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We wanted to have a good exchange. I kind of wanted to ask each of you, what were you doing when you were at UConn, and what was, not too extensive, but your UConn experience, and how did that lead you to where you are? I think, I don't know what UConn was, well, I know what it was like when you were here, because I was here too. But
we were here together.
We were here together. That's another
Sometimes
way.
in this room.
In this room, doing things. But what was that trajectory like during UConn and after UConn? Did you know you were going to end up doing CJS workshop kind of things, for example, Rob?
For me, and Bart knows this story like way too well. I started bugging Bart, I think, when I was like 14, 15, about joining the puppet program. There was a puppeteer in Massachusetts who I started bugging about, like, how do I get into the industry, how do I do this, by the name of Paul LaCour. Ran a company called the Drawbridge Puppet Theater in Lunenburg, Massachusetts, near Whalen Park. And he got so sick of me, he's like, just go to UConn. And so I asked, wait, there's a school I can go to for this? And so I auditioned at the very, very first O'Neill National Puppetry Conference, which was the Muppets. So here I am, I'm 16, and like Pam Marciero and Marty Robinson hand me Fraggle, and they're like, let's just play on TV. I'm like, so, and Bart sat in and watched for a little bit, and then we talked afterwards, and he's like, that was your audition, so you're all right. And so I always knew that I wanted to be a puppeteer. What was interesting for me was how I gravitated more into, like, not only I was more of a jack of all trades. There's several types of puppeteers, and I'm sure you are all like. You have yes. What? You have your hardcore builders that just want to build, and they're shy and they don't want to don't want to make noise, and they just want to make stuff. You have your hardcore performers that they don't want to build anything; they just want to be on TV and be and just big personality. And we don't know any of those. And then you have like sort of the hybrids, which are kind of me. And
tell me about me.
So more me. Where I like to. It's a fair blend of both. I always viewed building as so.
And that's your UConn experience.
You have to eat, so that's quite you. So for me, building was like my waiting tables. If you're an actor, you have to do something in between gigs, and so typically actors, like, they bartend or they wait tables because it's money, and they can drop that gig fast if they get an acting job. For me, I could still, the nice thing about like working in Los Angeles is like I could be in trade, I could be making these things, and then be open to opportunities to puppeteer. Typically, for making it, you get to puppeteer it. It was always kind of how that played out. So UConn, in that respect, for me, was originally just, I think the biggest thing that came out of it was the relationships, the people that I got to work with. And I think my first professional puppet gig was with Rick Lyon. I think Rick Lyon gave me my first job. But he met me through the UConn program. And I did like a Three Little Pigs show for him, and I was like so excited to do it. And it was so like you never know like what's going to lead to it, or where what direction it's going to take you. But like the biggest thing is everybody that you meet and that you get to work with, and UConn was critical for that. My career would not have happened because I needed to know who to meander through and work with, and so and then as far as like skill wise, I had enough to start with. Bart always talked about, like, he's like, I'm going to give you the foundations, and then it's on you. Like, you have to take it and run with it. So I went more molding and casting at first, and then got more into the foam fabrication, and then it just kind of went from there. But yeah.
What about Dana? What about you?
My experience is a unique one because I did undergrad and grad. There's not that many of us, I think, Bart, maybe 3 or 4. Yeah, I've heard of him. In undergrad, I was, with humility, I'll say I was a naturally talented builder and performer. and I thought that was enough to get me through, and I was going to be destined for greatness. And then I wasn't. I thought I could just coast by on talent, while there were other students in my class that were harder working and put more of themselves into it. A couple folks like Sarah Frechette and Kaylee Clemens were my contemporaries. You might have heard of them. They're pretty good folks. But I didn't really myself fully commit or understand what hard work and consistent effort was. I thought I could coast by on natural talent. Didn't get work after school. Did some other stuff. Then about 10 years after that, I came back for grad school. I met Bart for lunch, and I said, hey, I want to come back and get my grad degree. And he said, why? And I said, well, I'm coming back. He's like, why should you? Why should I let you come back? Why should you do this? An honest question based on my undergrad experience. But I came back and I said, I have these goals that I want to achieve. I'm a bit older now. I came back, I focused, and then did a lot of great work in grad. I got to perform the Puppet Master of Łódź.
Yeah.
Yep. Did my MFA show, and I helped Bart assistant direct the Yukon Puppet Festival. And then at the festival, people were like, hey, you're graduating. What do you want to do? And I said, honestly, I just want a dependable job in a shop with regular hours and benefits. And they were like, good luck. That's not a real thing. And then Bart ran into Rob at the festival. And we met up for a beer at the Nathan Hale, and Rob said, hey, do you want a job in a shop with regular hours and benefits? And I said, sure, that sounds great. And he said, you want to know what it is? I said, if you want to tell me. And now I'm here.
And now we're here.
Yes.
Yeah, great. I was thinking maybe we should open up this conversation and with the audience here. So there's a hand back in the back row there. Maybe we could, yeah, thank you.
I'm here as a guest. I have some curiosity things from a supplies standpoint. So you're running a shop with multiple materials, a whole mishmash of things, different projects coming in the door. How do you manage that from the supply side? Like, I can't...
So, with COVID and the disruptions in supply chains everywhere, it really shook the industry as a whole. It is more difficult to get materials. It's more difficult to get them on time. We have one client that is they're dear friends of mine that I've worked with for, oh my God, how many years? Way too long. Longer than you've probably been alive. And they were like, I was expecting like a couple months. And they're like, no, 10-month minimum lead time if you order it 10 months. How do you plan a project that you can't get what you need for almost a year? And that is consistent in a lot of different areas of our industry.
One of the reasons I'm low-key grateful we don't do animatronics is the primary servo motor company, Harmonic Drive, has a minimum 52-week lead time on motors. So you have to know a year before you even start making a thing exactly what size motors, how many of them, and what you want them to do. And you're lucky if you get one of them. So when you're testing that dinosaur or whatever, you are out of luck if you burn out a motor, or if somebody crosses a wire and turns that thing on and it arcs and just fries the whole system.
Yeah. It's tricky.
Puppets are better.
Yeah.
Puppets are better.
Anything hand-driven is just way better. You're always going to run into this. What we have found is that it's vigilance in research. Like, you're always hunting for new distributors, like anything. Call them, get samples. See if you like, if it's a fur manufacturer, check the backings. Do you like the weave? Do you like the piles of it? Like the colors?
It's a bummer.
It's a lot of work. We have people dedicated just to research. We've got 2 people that basically that's all they do all day, of like find us new vendors. Like feathers is a huge one for us. Of like, how do we, if we have a thing that we have to get done, that requires that. There's shortages all over the world, and it's like, is it going to be good? Is it louse ridden? Is it, it's difficult stuff to work with. So we're always struggling to find better materials, easier materials to work with, things that we know that we can get in 20 years or in 10 years or in a year. The struggle we run into with a lot of the Chinese mills is that they do limited runs only. So you'll do, you'll find this amazing fur. You're like, oh my God, it covers everything. It's amazing. It's a 4-way stretch. It does it. And then but they've already stopped making it. They made 2,000 yards of it, and that's all they're ever going to make. And then you're kind of out of luck, and then you start over. So supply chains have changed drastically, and it's just a matter of you always have to stay on top of it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Tom, you had a question.
Yeah, I was wondering where the biggest chasms are between client expectation and what you guys can deliver. Like, are there things where clients ask for one thing and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa?
Every client wants a puppet that looks left and right. They want their eyes to move left and right.
Yeah.
And it's never worth it.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Every single client wants blinks and eye left,
Smiles.
right.
They wanted to smile with the cheeks to raise.
And anytime that you deliver a puppet that doesn't have eye left, right, no one even notices.
Yeah.
Because you can point ahead at a guest.
On the sales side, it's a little more amusing because they'll call me with a concept and say, we need this. And I'm like, all right, well, let's walk through that. And so they'll say, I have one person that I've been negotiating with for a couple of months now, and it's 20 some odd characters that they wanted, and then it became very clear that their timeline, that from the point where they said yes, here's your money, was 2 months for 20 some odd characters. I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. And then they got very upset about that, and it's like, well, we can't just hit print and make this stuff. This is all handmade.
Rob will come into my office and be like, hey, I'm talking to the client about this new job. Do you want to hear about it? And I'm like, no, I don't.
No.
Not until there's a contract.
Yep.
Don't tell me.
You'll have clients that, like, they want the world. I've had a couple of schools call me and say, we want a mascot that breathes fire and does all this. We have $100. And I'm like, I'm sorry, no. So I think the biggest thing on the sales side is managing their expectations. You're like, well, that's a wonderful idea. This is what that would look like for you. And it's like, but instead of saying no, you're crazy, don't even do it. You say, well, alternatively, we could offer this and this and this, which would get you about 60% of everything. You can't do that because you'll kill the super performer. But otherwise, you're fine. It's always a mix of that dialogue before you get to the contract. So.
And once you hit production, it is very important to create a collaborative relationship with the client, and also communicate consistently and honestly. Time after time, if there is a procurement issue or a delay of some kind, if you communicate that honestly and upfront, that will garner more trust than not being honest.
Yeah. One of the worst things you can do is if there's an issue, is to not talk about it with the client, and or to if there's an issue and you're not talking about it. I'm so sorry, everyone.
A lot of times what you'll see is you can have a really good plan and then something pops up. The best thing you can do is not freak out about it.
Yeah.
That's fun. A lot of the principles that we develop for managing our team also apply to how we interact with our clients. We try to operate a blame-free shop. So things will happen, and there'll be a mistake.
And what kind of shop? Blame-free.
A blame-free shop.
Sorry,
I'll project it. We try to have a blame-free shop where we say it's okay to make a mistake, it's not okay to hide a mistake.
Yeah.
So if something during production pops up, it's much better to say, hey, I made the mistake, or I caught this mistake. Or if there's just an interpersonal issue, whether it's the work or just working with people, if something pops up, You identify it, we call it out, we find out what the root cause is, fix that issue, and then prevent it from happening in the future. That goes both for how we run the shop and how we deal with our clients.
Yeah.
Other questions? Oh my gosh, yes.
So, for summer jobs or internships, do you first of all, do you have them?
Yes.
Second, do you prefer your crew fully graduated?
No.
No.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
We've got
I have
we have a few people in our shop that are full-time employees, one of which came to us, high school degree, wanted to go to school for sculpture, and we said, hey, or you can start working with us and we can train you. He came in March or April with 0 experience, and he's already working, great. So we're much more eager to have someone that is willing to learn that we can train, necessarily than experience.
So this coming summer will be the first year that we're actually doing an official internship.
Okay.
That will be open to UConn students, and it's a paid internship, and but it's a limited window of a couple weeks, like whatever your break is, and the goal is you come in, you do the skills test, we sort of evaluate where you are, and then we put you to work on the things that we need you to do. And you'll get a good amount of training during that time as well. So,
Cool.
What are those skill tests?
So right now, the 2 primary tests that we put you through are the ball, which is a foam fabrication
Some of you
test.
were at the class that we had.
Some of us are building them.
Some of you were building the foam balls, yes.
Some of us are struggling.
The foam ball is a really good metric because what it is a very simple, just moon-shaped pattern, and it lets us see how you cut and how you glue. And those are 2 things that require a lot of finesse. Based on like your cut line, if you're this way at any given level, it changes that shape drastically. It creates points. What you want is that nice smooth shape. So we have our sort of our control, and then we see where you are along that control. The other thing that we have established is a sewing test, which we call the owl kitty, and it looks like a cat with an owl bird body. It's a weird thing.
It snaps fries. It basically has every type of stitch and process.
It has every kind of stitch. You're going to blend a non-stretch material with a stretch. You're going to do 5 or 6 different types of stitches, hand stitch and machine stitch. You're going to sew on snaps, buttons, Velcro? Is it Velcro?
A label.
A label
With their name on it.
Yep. And you create that to show us every single sewing skill set that you have. And then from there, we will say, okay, you need work on this and this and this. And we don't do that in a way to, we don't like that. No, it's never a point of shame. It's like, no, this is good. This is where we want to work. This is what we're going to train you on, and like going to beef you up. This is where we see some merit, and we're going to be pushing you that way. It gives us something, at least as a standard, to say, here's where you are and what you can do. So, yeah.
Yes.
It sounds like a lot of the principles that you built your shop on are based off of like your previous experiences and what you would have preferred them to have been.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great because in the industry, like we're talking right now about growth and treating people like humans. How do you see your company growing and continuing to uphold those expectations if you are no longer having those experiences?
One of the things I do in my role is I have monthly professional development meetings with everyone that reports to me. It's a half-hour meeting once a month. It's got a loose agenda. I give each person feedback on what they're doing well and areas where they can improve, and concrete tasks and techniques that I can do to help them improve in those areas. In turn, they give me feedback on what could be improved from the management or just the shop in general. Professional growth that they might want to do, whether it's leadership or skills training, and tangible steps we can take within that next month. It's an ongoing dialogue, and it's always merits real benefit.
Yeah. As far as culture goes, when I started the company, that was kind of the big thing. I'm going to take all the things that I hated about all the like toxic shops that I've ever worked for and
not do that. And I think that there's levels of how we treat people with respect, how we talk to people, how we care for people, how we can be collaborative artists and not be ego-driven maniacs, and and not get hurt feelings about like honest criticism and say, okay, this, I see what you did here, but this is where we need to get you to. And there's a way to do that in a way that I think is healthy and constructive. If we stop being that and become a different culture, then it's not really the shop that I want it to be, and I wouldn't want to continue it. Again, I want a good place where people feel like it's home and that they can do good work and be respected and be heard. And one of the biggest things that we have is, in any design effort, we want to hear from all of our builders about like, hey, I have an idea for this little thing right here. Cool. Like, what is it? And we'll run it by the whole team. And if the leads feel like it's something that has merit that we want to explore, we'll try it out. We may not, but at least at that point, you had the moment to contribute that idea. It's not that we're ever asking you to just sit there and just sell. If there's a better way to do something, we're always looking for it. So,
one of my founding or fundamental management principles came from grad school when I was working on my MFA, and I was really struggling, and I was sitting at my work desk in the corner, just quietly kind of toiling away and not succeeding. I was kind of really suffering, and I was wondering why no one was helping me when I was clearly struggling. And then I finally asked for help, and the general consensus from everyone was, oh no, you were just sitting at your desk. We thought you were doing fine. And Mark, the phrase that he said that stuck with me that I use every day is, I can't help if I don't know. So it's, I try to keep an open dialogue with everyone to make sure that we're constantly improving.
right. So you had a follow-up.
I do have a follow-up, if that's okay. So is that something that's coming exclusively from your is that something that's coming from the management side of your team, or is there also, like, in support of that, a particular role, like a culture champion, that's also facilitating those things?
I think it's led by me, and what's nice is that the people that my core team and then leadership team under them, everybody that we're very big on the culture that we're building, and so we vet people that are coming in pretty aggressively. It's like, we've had a couple people come in that had some pretty strong feelings about certain politics and stuff like that, and we're like, well, it's not, we got to be respectful here. It's like there's a lot of diversity in our team, and everybody has a voice and a personality that we want to respect. And the one thing that we can't tolerate is somebody being outwardly aggressive towards other people because of who they are. So I think the culture thing is building itself. We're not quite big enough where we would need the culture officer. If we get to that point, that's the way people. But I also don't want to be that big either. As far as the shop goes. But culture is huge for us. It's what's driving everything, and people that are coming in are very good natured and eager to have a nice, easy life in the woods and just make puppets and all.
Other questions? Yes.
Hi. I'm really excited to know that you work on Matt Singer. I used to watch that show like every week during quarantine. I was wondering if there's any character you would be willing to go into more detail about, like in terms of like process.
The one that sticks out probably the most for me is probably the Heart, which was I think season 6 or 7. It was Jewel was the artist, and that was one where we were under a very, very strict timeline. And typically, when we get a costume to the guest performer, we don't know who they are. We're given very, they keep that very much under wraps.
until the first fit. And then there's, okay, it's the person. So, but even then, it's a very controlled team of who got to go in and do the fitting. And we fit for both the suit, just how the suit fits in general, and then acoustics in the mask, because they are physically sitting in that mask. We have to pad it in such a way that it doesn't reverb, so that the sound doesn't sound like you're in a mask. So they're acoustically built, the interior of the mask, which is pretty crazy. And that was, and typically, whenever we got to a stage with putting a costume on a guest for the first time, they fell in love. They were like, "Oh, it's amazing! What a cool thing!" She hated it. She you brought it out and you could just see her whole face. What am I doing? And then all the producers lost their minds, and everybody got amped up because typically that's not the response. It's always a very positive sentiment. And they came back to us and they were like, "What? How did this go wrong? So wrong?" And I'm like, "Whoa! First off, it's the first fitting. It's not finished. We'll get there. We took her notes. We're gonna absolutely make all the modifications that she wants, so that the costume is hers and that it feels like everything that she wants it to be." And then 2 weeks later, she had a costume that she loved, and I think she won that season. Or she was close. So she was second one. Something I forget. She was lovely to work with. But you could just see the disappointment in that first look, and it just broke your heart because it was like, "Oh no, we promised. By the time it's done, it's going to be amazing." But we had, and then the only reason that one fell kind of the wayside was we had 4 big, crazy costumes that all the crew was focused on, and this one was just, it's a heart, it's a shape, it's a thing, easy. But it wasn't. It was insanely complex in what she wanted it to be. And so just taking it from that level to the next so that she was happy with it, so that she felt proud about going out in that costume and singing was huge. And so, that's the one that I remember the most because it was the first time that I had ever experienced anybody just heartbroken. So yes.
You had a question.
So I saw one of the slides that mentioned the computer design aspects like ZBrush and 3D printing. Do the people who do the computer side also do the physical building?
No. So our designers typically their focus is only design, and that's the one area where we're still building a design team. Most of our guys are contractors that we use. So we have a couple of good friends that work in LA that do all of our 3D prints for us. So as we are starting to now that we're starting to flesh out a core design team, I still feel like there's merit in if there's no design work going on, you guys need to be doing something. Come learn how to sew. No one's above doing laundry. Is kind of the so don't get too proud. It's we're in this to make stuff, so come make stuff with us. It's a very particular focus, and obviously our hope is that as we're starting to queue up more and more design work, they're just focused on the design side. Getting us 3D print assets, getting us renderings and things like that for design packets and reference material and all that. So there's a ton of work that has to happen, and so what we're trying to do is find out which teams need to exist to create our maintenance documents, to create all the tech packs we have to put together for how this gets built. All of our patterns have to be digitized. Everything that we have to provide to the client. So did that answer your question?
Thank you. You did really quickly.
Yeah, this might be kind of a naive question, but I'm curious if one of your major obstacles is sourcing supplies and you have a shop full of generalists, is one of your goals getting to the point where you can make some of these supplies yourself, like a simple motor, break out that loom? No? Okay, cool.
So we have good friends who maintain a fur mill up in Lawrence, Massachusetts, National Fiber Technology, and they're the best of the best when it comes to natural fiber fur beautiful work, exquisite work, and I've seen their operation and the machines that they have in massive warehouse space that they use to make their stuff, and I couldn't do it. It's magic to see how they blend fibers to create colors and all those things, but like you would need a whole company just to do that. Same thing with motors. Like most motors are built by robots, so you can't. It's not something that you can hand put together and have any sort of tolerances, and they have to last and be engineering spec and there's an aerospace level approval process for motors to. And we worked for a company that tried. They absolutely tried to put motors together, their own custom motors, and it was a very expensive effort that it went nowhere. So I'm more than happy to leave that to a big manufacturer. For us, again, motors are. If we're using motors, my biggest thing is like no more than 3 motors if we're ever going to do anything that's motorized, which is like a mast that has an idling in the mouth. So you have 2 motors that drive the shutter and 1 that drives the mouth, or vice versa.
Yeah, when you've got a character that's got 30 motors in it, if there's a programming error, it'll punch its fist through its head.
Yeah,
because the motors don't know to stop.
They don't know to stop, and you can put hard stops in, but if typically the machine is stronger than the things you put in to stop it. So puppets and costumes. Puppets and costumes.
I wanted to ask you, thinking of this esteemed body of talented puppeteers here,
yes.
And what do you look for in employees, and what do you think, having been puppeteers, part of the Puppet Arts program, what should puppet arts students be thinking about, and if they're thinking about wanting to go into the kind of work that you guys are doing in such a fascinating way?
It's an interesting. We were discussing this at dinner and on the ride down, and I think there's a couple of things for me. Number one, I grew up in a very different era of when I was your age. I didn't have 3D printers did not exist. Cell phones did not exist. I'm old. And so the fact that material and imagery and there are people that that are cosplay makers that just privately that are making full Iron Man suits, and it's crazy what you can do now with a home kit. And for you guys as professional puppeteers and puppet makers, you have way more tools available to you. It also means that you can get way less focused. And I think the biggest thing for me, what I'm looking for in anybody that we're hiring, is somebody that's this is what I want to do, and this is what I've focused my education on to get to that job. So if you for me, the big things, if you're materials, you've got materials classes here. Explore materials. I need you to know how to use silicones and urethanes and elastomers and thermoset and all those things. You have to know how to sew. Get comfortable on industrial machines. It's just take a sewing class. Go up to Susan's costume shop and say, "Please teach me," on anything. Learn how to use a serger. Those are all machinery that you have to get real comfortable with really fast.
This is a small industry.
Yeah.
Puppetry is a small world. So when someone's looking to, say for example, someone wants to join our team, if we don't know, if we don't know, we haven't met you, odds are good that we know someone who does know you. And more so for me, when I'm hiring someone, more so than experience or a big resume, I want someone who's willing to learn, but also. If I ask somebody that I've worked with, if they know someone, they say, "Oh yeah, that person's great to work with." That alone, it gets you 3/4 of the way to get in a job working with me. One of the things that we see, even just there's constantly new materials and there's new techniques, new technologies, all the time changing. But if you build your fundamentals, you can build upon them. short story, when I was an undergrad taking marionettes class, silicones and resins were just becoming consumer affordable. I thought I was going to change the world. I was going to make a robot marionette out of resins. After $1,600 in my own money and a whole semester, at the end of the semester, I presented a large pile of unusable parts.
What, 4,000
That we close to 100 pounds.
Yes, it was unusable. It was awful. It was embarrassing. What I learned from that is you can't revolutionize anything if you don't know what your fundamentals are. All the tools and the processes you learn here, build a toolkit that you can adapt into any technique or material. A big thing of that too is like, with 3D printing, and you can 3D print metal, flexible materials, rigid materials. State of the art 6 years ago is a joke now from like animatronics, what we do. You can always learn new materials or new machines. Being consistent, being clear, communicating well, being dependable, those are all way more valuable to me than knowing how to 3D print. Knowing how to 3D print is great. We use it all the time. But being someone that shows up on time every day and gives their best. I always say, like, I'd rather hire a B student that shows up every day on time than an A student that flakes out on me.
Yeah.
Now, that also comes from being a flake and then having to learn how to not flake.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a multitude of courses that you can take. If I highly recommend if you have any time to be in a machine shop, like learn how to use the drill press, a mill, a lathe. If you can learn how to weld, even just basic stuff. Any little skill that you can get that's going to help, like, just expand your skill sets. That's what we're always looking for. Because anything that you're going to bring to the table, we're going to go, okay, great. Now we're going to build this out, this out, this out. This stuff we'll get to later, but like this stuff is good right now, so we're gonna cultivate this with you.
Or boy howdy, if you can be like, hey Dana, this isn't working. I've got 3 options that I think might work.
Yeah. It's
I love that.
So, but focus is the big one. Self-discipline. Like we're a big shop and we're running. I hate to say time is money, but time is money. We have clients that we have to get stuff to, and the way that we typically do it. Once Dana has a budget for me, that's broken down into all the individual tasks that we have to get done. So if we have pair of shoes, pair of gloves, whatever we're doing, and we'll come to you and say, all right, you have 10 hours to make this. Here's your patterns. Here's everything to go. And that's how we account for it, And if you go past that, all of a sudden, then we're tipping the scales of losing money. And so the goal is always to stay on the right side of that time. That's what we give you as much pad as we can in your time, but we do account for it. And we have a coordinator that walks around every day with her chart, and she's like, "Okay, where you at?" And it's not meant to be confrontational or to make you feel bad or anything, but it's for us to know the metric of where you are, so that we can say, okay, do we need to assign more people to this to get it done on time? Do we need to, what do we need to do to help you out? If you're struggling with it and you can't get something done, we need to know that. And then this comes back to our point of honesty is absolutely, honest communication is the best thing. If you are having trouble with something, stop, come find us, we'll talk about it. Don't just try to power through for the sake of powering through. We're not going to be mad at you. I have a very strict policy in my company that I don't, as long as it's not done maliciously, if we're not doing something to personally destroy something for screw this place, as long as it's not malicious intent, it's fine. It's a mistake. It's a fixable thing, and no one needs to get mad or yell or scream about it. It's not worth it. It's a job. It's puppets and dolls. It shouldn't be yelling at people. Come on. So the biggest thing for me though is when I'm looking at employees, I want to see people that this is important to them, and how I see importance is they show up on time, that they, when their break is over, they're not like casually strolling in from their break, but it's over. They're already back at their table and they're working. We do a 4-10 schedule, which means you work Monday through Thursday. So you work 7 a.m. to 5:30, and you get 2 breaks and a lunch, a half-hour lunch. What's nice about that is that you get a 3-day weekend every weekend. And so you get time to, you can do all your errands and everything that you need to do on a Friday, and then you still get a full weekend to just hang out and play video games and do whatever you want to do. When we first started the program, I was like, I don't know if people are going to like this or not, and we play tested it and like, do you guys want to go back to a 5-day work week? And they're like, hell no, this is amazing. Because it does give people more time to refresh. Now, by Thursday night, everybody is pretty crispy after 4 10-hour days. But they always come back completely, reinvigorated because they have a full weekend to recharge. Because of that, the way that I look at it is like any given day, if we're out on a Thursday, if somebody's out on a Thursday, that means I've lost 25% of your time to the company. That's huge in a week. That's a tremendous amount of time. That's if the whole shop's shut down for like a holiday or whatever. That's 25% of the whole shop is down. That's a lot of time. So what I ask everybody is like, look, we try to pay you well. We try to help with your health benefits and company time off, and we try to be a very agreeable and easy place to work. The one thing that we ask is you come in and you kind of bust ass and just get it done. Like come in, focus, work. Don't be on your phone. There's time for that. If you need to take a phone call, we'll take a phone call. But like when you're at your desk, work. And everybody kind of gets it. And you'll see, if you ever come and play with us, you'll see like everybody's super in a good mood. There's always smiles. There's always laughter. There's a ton of laughter in the shop, that means a lot to me. Like everybody's very comfortable to joke around and feel like they can be silly, and at the same time they get the work done. So
I know you guys have a hard leaving time. We said 8:30. Yeah. So we have time for a couple of more questions. Maybe. Yes.
Can you talk about when you approach like the market analysis and sales when you're starting out to grow so quickly?
Okay, so we're going to be here till 10. When I started the company, I was reaching out to pre-existing clients. So, friends that I had made in the industry. And I before I even started the company, I reached out to them and I said, should I do this? Is this dumb? Like, what do we think? And they're like, you want to start? Absolutely, go. We have work for you to go. Because they knew me and they knew what I brought to the table with previous companies that I had been with. And they felt it was the right time for me to do that. And so I felt pretty confident that we could get rolling. And so like almost all of our initial sales were just made purely on relationship. What we're doing now is it's relationship. It's like sales based on that relationship. It's like it's a chain of word of mouth. Because I don't know if our website is very quiet. We don't really advertise much of what we do. There's a point to that. Is sort of the so many shops kind of put everything out there. They show everything that they've ever done, which is great for ad agencies and whatnot that want to kind of see stuff. But the theme parks, they get nervous about that because they don't want to see their stuff. There's rules about it. You're not allowed to see what they call the internals. You're not allowed to see what a head looks like opened up or what a costume looks like stripped down because it ruins the magic. It ruins the magic of that experience for a guest. So the big thing for us is we try not to show anything. And yes.
The short version is, remember what I was saying about hiring people, and if you ask for a referral and someone says, oh, they're really good to work with, that's kind of our business model, is where, hey, those folks at CJS are pretty good to work with.
They're good to work.
and then we get the work, and then we are pretty good to work with, and then we get more work.
And their privacy matters, and that's the level of respect that we try to very hard. Because contractually, if you look at the contracts, they say you can't use our logo, you can't use our name, you can't say that you even do business with us. And if you do that to the letter of the law, you have the pleasure of doing business with us. And that is completely respectable, And so as long as I've always put it as like, as long as we can just shut up and do the work, we're fine. It doesn't. That ego doesn't matter. It doesn't like when they're coming to us, they're giving us jobs. So why do we need to brag about what jobs we're doing if they're already paying us for it? Like that's kind of the thing. Now that said, the commercial side is very different, and we do have to get something out there. So like some of the stuff that you saw in the deck that we were just showing, those are things that we're putting together are real, and because the ad agencies need to see movement, they need to see, it's the only way that you can entice advertisers. So the commercial market's just different, and that's, but we still have to be very careful about not showing theme park work to them. So what we're showing is old TV stuff that we've done. So.
Will had a question. Yes.
I have a sort of two-pronged thing.
Okay.
Firstly, I was wondering, you've a few times brought up, there's this intellectual property component of the design. And I'm sure that varies depending on whether or not it's an original design, whether you farm it out from somebody, or whether the park, for example, sends you something and say, hey, you want an unnamed mouse character or something.
Yes.
But, are there regulations on, like, if we make you these suits, you can't just go have somebody else make the next ones after these?
No. So our contract, the way that I'm very cut and dry about, I'm like, look, this is your stuff. So we're happy to make it for you. We're happy to be good stewards of it. We will protect it to the best of our ability, and we will build it to the best of our ability. If at some point you decide that you no longer want to do business with us, whether that's today or 6 years from now, we will put it in a box and send it to you, everything. And we'll say, we're so sorry that you don't want to do business with us anymore. What did we do wrong? How can we improve? But if they're done, it's their product. They've paid for it. It's theirs. So we are very strict about that. I don't own anything when it comes to IP. It is the clients, and that is it.
So you rely entirely on the strength on the reputation of the company for people to come back. And then totally unrelated, and the second thing was you mentioned the safety, ensuring the safety of the suit performer or puppeteer or whatever. You said that there were regulations about motors and things like that, but when you're talking about something that's close to a mascot suit. Are there established, are there standardized regulations, and how standardized?
There's entire ergonomics departments within our clients. There's regulations. A character head can weigh no more than 6 pounds. If there's a grip control, that can take no more than 6 pounds of force to squeeze.
Has to have certain pounds per square inch of force.
Magnets of certain strengths can be only so close to a person, whether that's the performer or a guest. And that also depends on, so you can have a stronger magnet, but it can be shielded.
So nobody's pacemaker shuts off.
That's exactly right. There actually has not been an issue where a magnet has affected a pacemaker, but because there is a chance that it could, there are very strict regulations about magnets, orientations, and stuff, because a lot of times character heads, closures and attachments are magnetic attachments.
And people worry about, like, if you have a skull plate or if you have a cochlear ear plate. Those are all very disrupted by the rare earth magnets, so we have to be very careful about that.
But also in a practical sense, magnets are going to magnet. So you want to, depending on the strength of the magnet, you have to keep it a certain distance from the figure finish, because it will gradually pick up.
It'll pull through.
Or it'll gradually pick up iron dust. So you'll see little black rings if you don't shield or bury a magnet further enough from the exterior of the character.
It's a very delicate dance.
But these regulations, these are all particular to the clients or whoever's bringing this to you. There are, if the government's not like, hey.
So the clients will come to us, and there's several agreements that I have to sign prior to us even starting work. One is typically a general services agreement, which is a 300 or 400 page document, which basically lays out everything legally that the company expects from us. And then they will hand us their their guidelines for how things are built, what their ergonomic tests are, materials that we can't use in park, things that we can't send through the mail. Things like it's substantial.
In some places, if you need to fix something with barge, you got to take it out to the parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah, depending on what state you're in, barge is not legal, so it's yeah.
Maybe one last question here, and then maybe we can become informal, and you guys can leave whenever you need to get back to Massachusetts.
So you've, with all like the special contracts you have to sign and how, depending on the company, how they want it to remain a secret and etc. Or do you generally, to the team, do you generally just go out and be like, this may be a possibility we're working on, but we haven't officially signed anything, so we have to keep it hush-hush? Or is it, we signed it, so we can say this to the team now?
So the way that we have a bunch of people that like to worry, and so we typically, like, the core team knows what I'm in development on. So they get to see like everything that I am in any sort of negotiation with start to finish, because I have to have the conversation with them to say, can we do this? This is what the timeline looks like. This is the budget. What do we think? And they'll help me develop that before we put together the whole proposal and get that out to the client for review. Typically, anything that we do, we have to competitively bid. So, like, I'm bidding against 3 or 4 different companies. So, you know, if we get the job, great. But I don't want people to stress about what's coming down the pike until we know it's a thing. So typically, we don't share a lot of that with the crew until we know it's like pretty good. And at that point, you know, what usually ends up happening is like he'll put like little markers on the calendar, and then like a day later, somebody like bugs him. I was like, "What's this? What's this? What's this?" And that's, you know, how that kind of goes. But yeah, everybody's already busy, so keep them focused on what they're working on. And you know, that project's coming, so don't worry about it. You'll have time to see what it is. So
great. I'm thinking that maybe we could have more cookies, talk informally. Maybe you have questions for Rob or Dana. We could just go into informal time. And I thank Bart Rocco-Burton for all the work Bart has done to put these gentlemen in the position of being able to do the work they're doing now. And thank you to Rob and to Dana for coming and sharing your insights and your amazing work. We're really happy that you're here, and thanks everyone for coming. Thank you very much.